the very first core value of the Air Force is integrity first. And pretty much my entire career in the military, I violated that core value because I'm a lesbian. And it's taken me a long time to be able to say that. My journey to the military started when I was very young. I loved watching shows like G.I. Joe's and Transformers and Star Wars because something about being a part of a team, fighting for something greater than yourself, really spoke to me. Then in high school, I found out that my grandfather was one of the first Chinese Americans to join the US Navy. And the pride that shone through when he spoke about his time in the service really inspired me to actually look at the military as a career. In college, when I joined ROTC, I had to complete, like all of us do, a bevy of paperwork. And one of the forms that you have to sign is the addendum to the Air Force Form 1056. Basically, it stated that any homosexual conduct, which included homosexual acts, statements, or relationships, would disqualify you from military service. I signed it, and I did have an inkling that this could be a problem. But I figured I could probably compartmentalize any sort of inappropriate thoughts, inappropriate feelings, and then just bury it under my work, just like I did in high school and college. And so, essentially, my drive to serve this country outweighed any desire for a personal relationship at the time. And it worked. First couple years in the Air Force, I threw myself into it. Learned all about Air Force culture, learned how to be a good officer, and learned my career field in communications. But then it happened. I fell in love with a fellow female lieutenant. And as wonderful as it was to have finally a somebody, we lived under the constant fear that a wayward look, an accidental statement, could bring a humiliating investigation upon us. We had heard about their witch hunts. We had heard about the mistakes that other people had made. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. When I was reassigned to a different base, the relationship got harder to maintain. I got really good at the pronoun game. My significant other can't come to the holiday party because they are working, or I'm taking leave to go visit them. And then deployments became even more difficult because potentially your emails and phone calls are monitored. So heaven forbid you say something like, I love you. Even the term I miss you could be suspicious. My second relationship was with a civilian woman, and she essentially had to go back into the closet to date me. When I deployed, she couldn't see me off at the airport. She couldn't pick me up at the airport. She didn't get any of the official spouse or significant other support that squadrons and the military provides to significant others of deployed members. But fortunately, some of my squadron members probably suspected that we had a relationship, and I suspect even my squadron commander knew. I didn't tell, they didn't ask, but they did hint to me that if something had happened to me, they would take care of her. Fast forward to September 20th, 2011, and Don't Ask, Don't Tell is repealed. Great. I left active duty 8 days later and joined the reserves. And by all accounts, it was pretty much a non-event. Morale didn't crumble, units stayed cohesive, the military didn't just implode because now there were gays serving openly among us. But I was still afraid to come out. I had pretty much lived my entire adult life under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And although the military policy now was pretty clear on non-discrimination, there were still a lot of personal grumblings. In fact, thanks to Facebook, I was disappointed to find out that some troops that I had deployed with, some people that I had gone to war with and would die for, were not happy about serving alongside people like me. So I had a choice to make. Do I stay hidden and not risk losing the respect of these people? Or do I come out? Do I serve openly and work to break down these misconceptions? Well, I'm not proud to say that I chose the easy way out. I told myself that I didn't want to be known as the lesbian officer. I wanted to be known as a good officer, not because of or in spite of my homosexuality. I told myself that activism was for other people. I was afraid of the label. That is until a couple months ago, so this is pretty fresh. I was serving on a tour, a long-term tour, at a small base in New Mexico as the public affairs chief. And my shop consisted of 15 airmen, 15 young airmen, 2 of which were serving openly as gay and lesbian. This was super cool to me, but I still wasn't really comfortable about it. But I finally, near the end of my tour, I plucked up enough courage to let slip in one of our casual conversations that I had a girlfriend at home. And, as I hoped, nothing happened. The shop kept functioning, the airmen kept doing their job, and even though they had lesbian boss, oh my goodness. So the day that I left New Mexico, the young lesbian airman sent me a beautiful message. She thanked me for sharing a part of my story that she could relate to. She thanked me for sharing a part of our shared struggle and showing that she too could succeed. And then she also said that it was important to have a lesbian boss. She used the word important, and I thought about that word my entire 3-day trip back to California. It made me realize that by hiding a part of me, I was not just doing a disservice to myself, but potentially withholding important information and empowering people who were potentially walking the same path as me. Throughout my entire military career, I've prided myself on leading from the front and setting a good example. When Don't Ask, Don't Tell was first repealed, and I didn't want to come out, I felt that, it's not gonna make a difference how I lead, how I operate in the military, whether they know or not, so I'm just gonna take the easy way out. It took this very young airman to make me realize that I was being an incomplete leader. And she's the reason that I'm standing in front of you today and that I can say that I am a lesbian. It's important to tell these stories because for somebody like her, it's important to people to find a mentor that they can relate to. It's important for the straight captain who believes that he's not serving with gay or lesbian service members. It's important for our civilian colleagues to show that our fighting force is stronger because of our inclusivity and not in spite of it. For me, and take this as you will, the bottom line, what I learned from these last few months is that who I love does not affect how I lead, but it can affect how others follow. Thank you.